Mike from Shuswap Ski and Board with another how-to. Today's how-to, we're going to take a look at a couple of common slalom ski issues and give them a go. The first one up is going to be a repair of a sidewall, probably a handle ding that caused the ski to delaminate in that area. We'll get closer into that in a minute. And then we're going to reinsert a ski. Everybody's dealt with that typically, that skis, the inserts can come out of them, and we'll show you how to put them back in without gluing the screw into the ski. For our slalom ski repair, there's an assortment of things we're going to need to go through, or to use to make the repair. So epoxy, always one of what we use. We typically use the LePage's Speed Set, it's called. This is the giant economy size. That's the buy at your corner hardware store. Felt pen, sometimes we cheat a little bit and color things to hide where the white spots are. Various bits and pieces that we'll explain as we use them, all in the precision screwdriver. Often we use that for helping mix it. Pair of needle nose pliers, again, we'll explain when we put those to use. And we use the heavy duty packing tape because it seems to work the best of all. Something to be able to mix the epoxy on so that it doesn't get absorbed in there. And whether you use your hotel room key or old Shuswap Ski and Board gift cards, they work great as spatulas as we're working on the skis. All right, so first up, we're doing the sidewall repair to the one that we think was caused by a handle ding. We're going to start it out by mixing up some epoxy. It's called Speed Set epoxy, as we mentioned earlier, and the reason it's called that is because it sets pretty quick. So you've only got about 5 minutes once you start working with it before it gets hard on you and hard to work with. So you want to make sure you're ready to go with everything. That's why we show you the tool layout and all that in advance. And we're going to mix this. We're trying as best we can to get a 50-50 mix so that both the hardener and the epoxy are matched up volume-wise. We want to mix it up real good. Stir it up. I usually push it into a bit of a pile on one side so it makes a spot where I can get. Here we're going to be pretty frugal with it, so I'm going to set this over here next to the ski. Now this part you got to be really careful with because you don't want to wreck the ski or make the damage any worse. Sort of like a doctor in the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. So we put this little precision screwdriver in there as gently as we can to open up the crack that little bit more to be able to get the epoxy in there. So this is the part where it gets a little tricky to try and make sure we're getting it in there. And the screwdriver is probably going to fall out on me here, so I'm just going to grab that and shift it over to the other side so that I can then keep going and feed my epoxy in there. Sometimes when it's really, really tight, you might use something like a paper clip, even skinnier, right? Something thinner to be able to get the epoxy right in all the way. And you see how I kind of stroke it? Each one of those we're hoping is pushing the epoxy deeper into the ski. There we go. And now we want to make sure we've got some going back this way, right to the end of that ding part. Okay, we're going to set those guys down for a moment, and then we're going to squeeze whatever epoxy out of it that we can get out because we don't want too much extra in there, and generally you'll get more in than you really need. Well, not too bad. We already get a little bit out of there. And then the trick that I like to use, and we try to do things in our how-tos in a way that you can hopefully do it at home without having to go out and buy a whole new toolkit and other things to do it. Packing tape. We use the heavy-duty stuff here in the store for when we're shipping things, and it's ideal for what we're going to do here as well. So you want to wrap it from on the bottom of the ski, make sure it's well secured there. And the reason the bottom of the ski here is because we want the pressure going wrapped around downwards like that. So here we go. We're going to stretch that as much as it can. That's why you want the heavy duty stuff. Otherwise, you'll find that you tear if you're using the cheapy stuff. And depending on the length of it, we sometimes need to go to an extra layer of tape or something. So let's put another one in there to overlap and cover that other spot and wrap it around really nice and tight. That should be good. And so we're going to let that set for a while, and we'll move on to the other ski that we're going to replace the insert on. All right, our second ski repair today is going to be putting an insert back in a ski where the insert, so the little nut that's inside the ski, has been pulled out when we took the bindings off. It happens sometimes, so you might as well know how to do it. If you're not within easy drop-in of the store, then this will teach you how to do it. So what we're going to do is take our little double nut device here and thread that in to the insert. So you can see that goes in there. And we want these two nuts locked in place so that when we screw it back in, we're going to drive that back down into the ski. Okay, so that's ready to go. We want it ready to go because whenever we mix up the epoxy, we've got a limited time window with the epoxy. So the 5-minute speed set epoxy that we use is just that. And so we're going to do a little bit of there. We don't really need very much because it's a tiny hole, but we want to make sure that the threads of the nut are caught with the epoxy and held back into the ski. Mix that up. And then we take that and try and paint the walls of that hole. So try and go around the outside of the hole, work your way down in. Not too much, but enough that it's going to come up in through the threads as we thread that back in. So one more little bit maybe. I'm going to show you some other tricks about how to not glue screws into the inserts when we're done. Let's get that out of our way for the moment. Okay, back to our double nut with the insert on it. So we just thread that in there. See, that goes in nice and easy. And the reason we have the double nuts is because a lot of the time, if you don't have the capability of holding that nut, that lower nut in place, then it will come back, the insert will come back out when we unscrew it. So this way, you see, we can unscrew this, and that nut, that lower nut, is holding the insert in the ski. Because otherwise, like I said, a lot of the times, insert just comes right back up, and you're going, damn, that shouldn't happen that way. Okay, so let's see if I get more generous with my unscrewing here. There we are. And so you can see we're back to being flush there, so our double nut did its job. Now, the important thing I'm going to do right now, because the epoxy can seep up inside, we'll get rid of a little bit of excess there, I'm going to put a screw back in there. The reason I'm doing that is so that the epoxy doesn't seep up in where the threads are and block your screw from going back in when you're trying to put the binding back on. However, there's something very important about this step. You can't walk away and leave it, okay? Don't get distracted. Every couple of minutes, you want to come back and give it a couple of turns to make sure that the epoxy is not locking up on that screw and gluing the screw into the ski. So every now and then, come back and give it a hit. And, you know, if you do that for maybe 10 times over half an hour, that's probably excessive, but but after a half an hour, the epoxy will be well set and it's not seeping up into the ski. All right, so just do that. Now, this ski's set for the moment. We're going to follow up on that. We're going to play on this a couple of times. We're going to go back to our other ski and see how we made out with fixing that wall. All right, back to our first ski where we did the sidewall repair. Let's peel the tape back and see how we made out. Again, when you're peeling it back, try and go sort of in such a way that you don't add any extra pressure where you might pull things apart if they didn't bond as well as they should have. But that came off nice and easy. Looks pretty good. Well, now I may have to go and get my secret weapon out here. Maybe not. All right, so we're going to put a little bit more epoxy on here. So we're just going to add a little very, very thin layer on top here and on top here. There's a little bit of a divot there, so we're going to try and get that filled in and smooth this part out here as well. So more epoxy. More mixing. Okay, and again, we're going to be reasonably frugal with it, but keep your pallet here with the epoxy on it close by where you're going to do your repair. And then I just kind of run it along the ski like that. Just spreading it over initially gently with the awl. And then we're going to come back to our little Shuswap Ski and Board spatula to finish it off. All right, so that's that part. And again, grab one of these and ever so gently, we're going to smooth that off. I clean it between sort of each one so that I'm not spreading the epoxy I've already scraped off back over other spots of the ski. Now there's just a hint of a curl to this edge here, so I'm going to have to be extra careful as I do this, but let's give it a go. And again, get rid of that excess epoxy. I think we pretty much got it. So we'll let this one set. We'll go check on our other ski, make sure that we didn't glue the screws into the ski, and we'll come back and take maybe one final look at this one before we wrap it up today. Back to our pal, the ASX, with the ripped out insert. So while we were working on the other ski, I did sneak away a couple of times and wiggle it around like that to make sure that that didn't lock up in there. It's been sitting long enough. I'm pretty confident that the epoxy's not going to slide up into the threads and plug things up, so I'm just going to take this one out and we'll be done with that. You can see actually how there is epoxy on those threads, so that's why it's important. It would have sept, whatever that is, up, and could have caused some problems with getting the screws back in there, so we help prevent that from happening. Now what we didn't mention before, which we should have because it's important, is where do you get this stuff, whatever. Typically, any decent hardware store is going to have an 832 screw and nut combination to make our little double nut tool. We made it with the longer, one of the Phillips heads ones that we keep here in the store, but this is what you can find easily at your local hardware store. If it has a Robertson head, who cares? It accomplishes the exact same thing. So those are both great for that. Okay, and then one final thing, we mentioned sometimes it's caused, the inserts are come out because of tightening your binding down and having it where that insert can slide up between the bars of your binding. So one of the tricks you can do to stop that from happening is you get a washer that has a smaller hole in it than the inserts themselves. So you see how that can't fit there, right? So it couldn't possibly pull it out of the ski. So, and just to be nice, although on this old ASX, less of an issue, I put some adhesive foam on there and then we would mount the ski back to the boot back to the ski, and the insert can't pull back up out of the ski again. And that's about it for replacing inserts. All right, just to wrap up today, we're back with our edge repair that we did. So just wanted to mention to you that it's my goal when I do these repairs to never have to sand or file. And that's where a good spatula like this lets you get a nice smooth finish on that edge and not have to sand. If you sand, you're going to scratch up the area around it and it's messy. My little secret weapon that I mentioned before is just a simple nail file, and all it does is every now and then you get a little burr or something sticking up, so you can do that, and it's dealing with such a tiny area there that it's not going to scratch up the rest of the ski. So there you have it. You need help with your repairs, give us a shout at Shuswap Ski and Board. Have fun.